Hi, everybody. Welcome to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show here on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you. We're streaming on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Please like and subscribe. Click that bell so that whenever we come up, you will be notified. And go to the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. That is the only page where I can get friends, everybody. Please go to Santita Jackson and Friends, and everybody like and share right now. Please like and share right now. And meet me on Twitter at Santita J. At Santita J. Please like and share the show. Everybody who's listening right now, share the show, tell people about the show. Please do. Um, so let's get right to it. We're also streaming on AM950radio.com. AM950radio.com. This is the largest progressive talk radio station in this part of the country. And so we need your support. We need your support because we speak for you, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is quite a time. We were just speaking with Professor Stevens Eunice from the University of San Francisco about the lessons that it appears that President Biden refuses to learn from 1968. And so he said, what does that portend for the Democratic National Convention in August of 2024? Well, we will see, and we're going to have him back on to talk about why he continues to push back on not getting a ceasefire and all of that. And then we spoke of what happened with Justice Alito and his wife and Justice Roberts and what those conversations revealed as they were uncovered after Lauren Windsor went undercover at the Historical Society of the Supreme Court and talked with these persons disguised as a conservative. Of course, she's a liberal activist, and wow, everyone's talking about that today. But let us talk about Hunter Biden. Of course, I plan to talk about the Brown versus Board of Education decision. Many people feel that Justice Clarence Thomas has telegraphed that this court could gut the Brown v. Board of Education decision. We will talk about it, I promise you, in the coming days. But let's talk about the Hunter Biden verdict. Wow, was that quick? They just wrapped up the case, and now he was found guilty on all three counts. And many people are saying that, wow, I was reading in thehill.com that he was found guilty based upon law that his father pushed. And of course, who can forget the president's push for the crime bill? Who can forget his push for police rights? As we were looking at the tapes of Rodney King being beaten to within an inch of his life, he went on the floor of the United States Senate just within 2 weeks of that and was calling for not for victims' rights, but for police. Well, life comes at you fast. You've got to be very, very careful because now his son could be looking at jail time. We don't know, but we do know now he too is a convicted felon. How will the Republicans and the Democrats handle this? President Biden just spoke at an event, a gun control event, in which he did not mention this, but he is on his way to Delaware to be with his son and his family as well he ought. And so our prayers are with the family, but let's talk about this. The corporate media, when you look at them, they are really very sympathetic toward Hunter Biden and his family. They talk about his past traumas. They talk about the pain of his life. They talk about what led him to drug addiction. But, that doesn't happen for most people. 99.9999% of those who are caught with drugs, who take drugs, they go to prison. And they can stay there for years. For years. And really, because of laws that even President Clinton apologized for the crime bills that he signed. Now, of course, his wife was running for president at the time, but times have changed in the past 30 years. And so let's talk about this today. And this, of course, will air Wednesday morning in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Hunter Biden, according to this Axios report, was found guilty on all charges in his federal gun trial that began earlier this month, making him the first adult child, I will add, of a sitting president to be convicted of a crime. Axios goes on to say why it matters. The president's son now faces sentencing and possibly prison as his father seeks re-election. Indeed, if you looked at many of the stories leading up to President Biden announcing, as he was mulling the idea, but he was really going to run, mulling the idea of running, they said his principal vulnerability was his son because of his business dealings. And there's a lot of speculation about whether those business dealings directly benefited the president and the rest of their family. There's a lot to unpack here. But Abby Lowell, who's one of the best lawyers in the business, said, I did my best, but we're disappointed in the verdict. And will they appeal? What does this mean? What does this mean? Life comes at you fast. 4 years ago, was it? Yeah, that's right. Hillary Clinton, was that 2016 when Hillary Clinton and Trump were running? Attorney Linda Bernard, from Detroit Police Commissioner, and of course, one of the preeminent lawyers in the country. You've won three cases before the Michigan State Supreme Court. I don't think it gets any better than that. And you got to tell me what we're looking at. Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist. And of course, he is senior advisor to Dr. Cornel West, who's running for president. Dr. Cornel West even said that these crime bills that President Biden, then Senator Biden's posture on crime was a crime against humanity, and that Black people were severely hurt by these by these pieces of legislation, and yet now his son has gotten caught up in that. Wow, it's just my heart. Even as I look at this and say, "Here you go," my heart still breaks for the Biden family, and it breaks for every family who has to go through something like this because it's very painful. But here we are. Attorney Linda Bernard, lay out the case for us. What was he charged with, and what are we looking at?
Well, before we do that, I think we should quote Brother Malcolm: "The chickens come home to roost," and that is what's happened here with Biden's crime bill, under which, although this is technically slightly different, but still, which convicted thousands and thousands of Black men and women for having. Your father has spoken about it. Reverend Jackson has spoken about it frequently, for having one sweet and low packet of sweet and low, that size, of crack cocaine versus a whole pound of real cocaine. And because crack was cheap, African American people use crack, but rich people use real cocaine, but they got triple and quadruple the sentences that people would get for a pound of a pound of what, a kilo. I'm sorry, it's not a pound, it's a kilo of real cocaine versus three sweet and low packets of crack cocaine, which is diluted cocaine, as we know. So that was that bill that put thousands and thousands of Black men in prison, and that actually President Trump let out 14,000 men, principally African American men, who were convicted of crack cocaine, having possession of the three sweet low packets, versus white people that had a whole, I've seen a whole bowl of cocaine, and so forth. So today the chickens did come home to roost. Today, in terms of Hunter, it's really interesting how the media plays it. He's what, 45 years old?
54.
Something like that. 40, I'm sorry?
54.
54 years old. And we're talking about him like he's some inexperienced kid, when in fact he was kicked out of the military for cocaine use a zillion years ago. So he's been a user. He's been getting high for a long time, and as we both know, getting high, and I'm sure Dwight may know as well, costs a lot of money. And so this is all starting now, to develop and unravel. This what some stations have called the Biden syndicate. You pay us for influence, you pay us to get over with stuff. And I haven't heard what Cornel West has had to say yet, but I can't wait to hear it. So this is all part of that whole syndicate of people who've never had a job, never done anything to make any money, didn't own a real estate company, didn't own a business, didn't own nothing, but became multimillionaires. under very interesting circumstances. And I guess your Congressman Cromer is going to continue to unravel this situation, as because because apparently Biden made, what is it, 5 billion in taxable revenue, didn't pay any taxes,
5
and so
million.
yeah,
Right.
million, right. And so that trial is coming up, I think, September 5th. But today, the only thing that happened is that the jury listened to Hunter speak in his own voice and his own words, as he read aloud in his book that you could read aloud, whatever it's called. Um, and he talked about his cocaine use and going to the 7-Eleven and that being the spot, and all the thousands and thousands of dollars that he had. What was interesting to me in terms of this case was they never connected the gun. Because if you're carrying around thousands of dollars and thousands, you really do want to have a gun on you, quite frankly. And so he applied for the gun permit and had the gun, I think, to protect himself from his own drug dealers and other people who had lots of money. But today, the jury took 3 hours. It shouldn't even have taken that long, to decide that he was
Why
guilty,
not?
because he lied. He lied on a federal form. It wasn't about his drug addiction. I mean, they tried to peddle that as a reason, but he lied on a federal form. Like if they ask you, Santita Jackson, what, are you a drug abuser? You could honestly say no. But if you were a drug abuser, you can honestly say yes, which means you wouldn't get the gun. He bought the gun legally, and he knew that when he bought the gun legally, he had to answer this question. Now, if he had bought the gun illegally, then it wouldn't have been, but his offense would have been having an unregistered weapon or whatever, and he of course would have had to take any repercussions regarding the bullets that come from that gun, because there's a national database of every gun that's registered, and the bullets that are fired from that gun, so you would know if it had been used in the commission of a felony. But no, but he
So
lied
let me
on
ask
the
you
form.
this. So
I'm sorry.
no, no, let me ask you this. Uh, so you disagree with the framing of the case, because the corporate media certainly have made this about his addiction, and it seems that Abby Lowell, his lawyer, did too. Um, why do you disagree with that, and how did that even happen?
You can't lie on a federal form. Duh.
But
I
why did
mean,
they make
this is
this
this
about
is
his
not
addiction?
rocket science.
Why did they make
It,
this about his addiction?
because they were seeking sympathy. What they said all along is they were hoping for jury nullification. This was a slam dunk black and white case. There was no question about it. And dum dum, went to trial on it. Like because I think he thought he was in Delaware, and that's Biden country, and they refer to him as the prince, and of course Biden is the king. So they just thought that he was going to be able to move forward with this, but the people said no, 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 no. No, we've had relatives, as you and I have both probably, who are alcoholics and or drug addicts and everything. But the bottom line is, we had to pay the consequences and suffer the consequences, and so do you. No, no, no. What's my basketball player's name who does that? I forgot his name.
I
But
don't
anyway,
know.
yeah,
So,
he was honored by your father once. Him and Isaiah Thomas. I was present actually.
oh,
Uh, Tall, real tall brother from
was it
Africa.
Dennis Rodman?
No,
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 no, no.
no, not Dennis. Dennis was after the
Oh,
fact.
in Toomey from Africa.
Correct.
Oh,
Your father honored him,
hmm.
and Isaiah at the same dinner. I was at
Oh,
it in Chicago.
okay. At the sports dinner at the,
Hmm.
and of course I want to
Thank
remind
you,
everybody. No,
Dwight.
stay right there. I want to remind
Uh-huh.
everybody that the Democratic convention begins the 18th of August, 18th to the 21st, but the Rainbow Push convention, you need to be there. The People's Convention will begin on the 13th to the 17th, and we will be at Rainbow Push at 930 East 50th Street, right on through the convention itself. You don't want to miss it. And of course, we're going to have a listening party, a watch party, Dwight McKee and Attorney Linda Bernard, for the National Conference of the Poor People's Campaign. For people who cannot get to Washington, D.C., you can come to Rainbow Push on June 29th. It's going to be something special. And I will be singing the national anthem at the Free and Equal election debate in Las Vegas on July 12th. Looking forward to that. Thomas
Yay.
Massey will be the moderator, and they are, I think, they're still trying to get Cornell West. Dwight, I hope you can help us to get him because I think it could be a great, great, great thing. But they've got about 4 or 5 of the candidates already confirmed. So we've got a very active summer. Dwight McKee, um, what do you make of this?
Linda, it's people be trying to slam dunk on Matumbo, and he said no, 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 and he's
No,
knocking
no,
away.
no, no,
No, no,
no.
no. I make of this is that um, I said a little different than Linda said. It is that God is not mocked. Whatever you sow, so shall you reap. Is that two things? One is you were right that the media is very sympathetic about Biden,
Yeah.
but the problem is they wasn't on the jury. The jury was mostly black and experienced exactly what Linda has talked about. Is they've seen their relatives and their friends and their uncles and nephews put in the joint based on 1 or 2 grams of cocaine. And they've seen white folk with boatloads of it walk. And so they were already predisposed to justice and to not be so prone to be sympathetic to a rich white boy who they see had the same problems that their family has had, but has not paid any consequences for it. I think that it does a couple of things. One is it almost neutralizes Trump's indictment because as soon as they say convicted felon, which they say every 3 hours, every 3 minutes on The View, the comeback will be, but also the president's son is also a convicted felon. If he does not get time, then it will look like a double standard. If he gets any time, it's going to be worse. His resume is very, very, very scathing. Resume. When people look at him, they see a cocaine addict with a gun charge, who has dubious business dealings, who married his brother's wife.
Well, he started dating her after he died. He didn't marry her. He married somebody else. Yeah.
Oh,
But still,
the point is the same.
No, no, it was. I mean, it was just like, wow, bless their hearts. Because remember, his brother Bo passed, and he left his wife to date his sister-in-law.
How sympathetic can you be to somebody with that kind of resume?
Mhm.
And you know that, as Linda said, is that he is a family who has no major business dealings, who all of them now become millionaires based on influence peddling. And so, in many ways, it's simple justice. Is that you sow the wind, you get caught in the whirlwind. And his father sold those crime bills in order to catch Negroes in the net, and he did. And but that same net is flapping for his son. You sow the wind, you reap the whirlwind.
Do you think so? What about the political consequences, Dwight? What about them? I mean, because now, as you said, every 3 minutes, well, every time you, part of the intro to Donald Trump is convicted felon. And then everybody, almost everybody goes into some long, uh, drawn out explanation of that. But that's not, that's Donald Trump. It's not Joe Biden. Will Joe Biden get tagged with the sins of his son?
Well, all you have to do is look at his speech today. He spoke on gun violence, but how compromised his speech was. Because in his speech on gun violence, it was very difficult to ignore the contradictions.
Well, the fact that he didn't mention his son.
Uh-huh. And the fact that he's speaking on an issue that his son got convicted, uh, has just got convicted on. But also understand, Santita, that this ain't over. That there's some other trials coming up that he also runs the risk of being convicted on. And so he still has a trial coming in California. He has a trial coming up in California. He has issues that Congress is going to bring up about his business dealings. His father right now is polling at about 39%, I think, has not resolved this Gaza situation. And there's some calls now for him not to run inside the party. So to answer your question, yeah, I think the whole campaign is in trouble. And justifiably so. Because one is he's not delivered for the base that voted him in. And secondly, he has delivered for everybody else who is not part of his base.
Which is interesting because his polling numbers have climbed with the white electorate. Do you think that's what he's hanging his hat on? White voters?
I think he has no option. The young have forsaken him. The third world has forsaken him. The black base has forsaken him.
Do you
Where
believe
else can he
the
go?
black
Huh?
race? Well, let me ask you this. Do you believe, I'm going to ask you and ask Linda because Linda's in Detroit. And I want to hear from you both because the pundits in corporate media are saying they're taking great pains to say that now Biden is up by 2 points since the Trump conviction. Um, and and yet uh, and so they're really making the case for a Biden surge, or not a surge, at least he's incrementally winning voters. What do you think? Do you think that do you think that President Trump's conviction, and do you think Hunter Biden's conviction, well, how will it impact both of them, both of these campaigns?
Trump is innocent. That's the first way it's going. And people are not stupid. They trumped up a case, and a tremendously biased sort of hanging jury decided to take action against him. But there is no question that the Court of Appeals will strike the convictions down. It
Why?
made no sense. I mean, one, because of Bragg's bias, because of the judge's bias, and because of the judge's rulings, which also reflected that bias. Not letting the head of the Federal Election Commission testify. Who does this? Everything about it. How they having the U.S. Justice Department's attorney quit his very lucrative $200,000-$300,000 job and come and be the DA, the appointed DA on this case. I mean, Stevie Wonder could see this. This is not, even camouflaged. Not at all, quite frankly. But more importantly than that, I really think that this is slightly off, is that I really think Donald Trump has learned something by this experience. He's not as braggadocious as he was. He's not as, making those snide remarks that he used to always make. He seems to have finally, it's like like God has spoken to him that he needs to chill and be more sensitive to people. His whole thing about not taxing people who are waitresses, that's an act of humility. That's not something he ever thought about before. He now has the experience of having gone through a trial, having been convicted, having had to meet with the people who make the decision about about whether he should be released or whether he should go to prison. I mean, this has been an extremely humbling experience for him. He even talks different now. So I think that, if you will, sort of God just sort of backhanded him on this, said, okay, get back in your place, be a human being, be a person, be sensitive to people, think about what you're saying. And he seems to have gotten that message now, at least from my observation of the things that he's saying and doing.
Okay, Okay. And then we had
So
to get you
yeah,
back on the we had to get you back on the mic. Okay. You said at
yeah,
least your observations indicate
yeah,
to you
yeah. He's
that
yeah
he's been humbled by.
he's learned a little something.
Well, what are you
This is
hearing
important.
people say? What are you
I'm
hearing
sorry.
people when you talk to people in Detroit? What are they saying? And particularly when you talk to black folk in Detroit. Well, I mean, Detroit is really a mixture. You've got a huge Arab American community there. You've got white working class people there. You have some wealthy white people there. You have some middle class white folks there. You got wealthy black folks there. You got wealthy and poor and middle class everybody there. What are you hearing about Trump and about Biden, particularly in light of what happened with Biden's son today?
Well, I don't know that Detroit has changed their position. Many black people, I mean, as you know, Kamala was just in Detroit a few days ago, and she's, sort of carrying the water or trying to carry the water in Detroit. I think that a lot of people are still committed to Biden, but I don't know how. They have to be dumb, deaf, and crazy. This is a person who can't even put a sentence together. And you're talking about as a leader, as they've said, there isn't a single corporation in America that would hire Biden as their leader. And that's unfortunate. I mean, dementia is a terrible disease. He obviously has it. And I, and I pray for him in that sense of the word. But but black people have been, oh, I'm a Democrat. I'm a Democrat without any thought. They're just, in that line, in that circle. They're not thinking clearly or independently. And what's happened with the immigrants in the United States is really unbelievable in view of what the needs of poor black people and poor white people have been, which you've talked about before in terms of Poor People's Campaign. All of that $1 trillion they've been spending on all that nonsense could have been spent within our communities in a much more progressive way. But anyway, I mean, the bottom line is that many people are still, I'm for Joe Biden. I don't understand it, but he's not going to perform well in the debate unless they really shoot him up. And he has to get those big IVs with vitamin A, B, C, D, E. Like they give athletes and stuff. It's all legal, but it's really an intravenous injection. And he takes 3 days off before, like he did before the State of the Union. He was well rested, and he had been IV'd up, in my opinion, because it was a whole different person. That was a person I didn't recognize. But
Oh,
it is what it is.
oh
So we'll
then
see.
I should have warned you, Dwight McKee. She's a woman of opinions. Like she's a brilliant lawyer, and she's had to deal with a lot of clients too. So, um, well, there it is, Dwight. Don't laugh, just speak. How do you think the campaign? Because that's what I'm trying to hold it together. As you were talking.
Well, I think the debate's going to have a major impact on this thing. I think it's going to be make or break for Joe Biden. I don't think it's make or break for
Trump.
Trump. I think Trump is, pretty much insulated and isolated from judgment. But I think all eyes are going to be going to be on Biden to see how he performs.
Well, let me ask you this, Dwight. Before we get to the debate, because I don't want to lose this. Let's back up to today before we go over to the debate in July. Given what happened today, if you could have advised uh, President Biden, and you've advised Reverend Sharpton, that's your best friend of 50 years. You've advised you are the senior advisor to Cornel West, and countless others. I mean, we call him Attorney Bernard on a regular basis. What just
Wonderful.
happened here? What just happened here? Because he was trained by the best, some of the most brilliant and crazy people in the world, and now he has the mantle. Bless his heart. So talk to me, Dwight. If you could have managed him today, what would you have had him do? Would you have had him speak at that gun control rally? If you had, because he would have had to cancel. He did not do that. What would you have had him say? How should he have handled this situation? Should he have done what he did, not mention his son at all, or what would you have had him say?
He should announce the peace initiative in Gaza. That's what I'd had him do. come out and say that he won't support any more genocide, and that Netanyahu needs to be accountable for his behavior, and United States was not going to be a co-conspirator to genocide and overrun the story. And so that would have been the headline. And then I would have just weaved in that one another that, my family's in prayer because what my son has gone through. But children have value everywhere, including my own, including those in Israel, including those in Gaza. And so just like I hurt for my own child, the fathers and mothers in Gaza hurt for theirs. The mothers and fathers in Israel hurt for them. And it's about saving the children.
Very good. Bravo, bravo.
It would have been a home run because you're right.
Yeah, it would have diverted all of the attention. That's the point. The news story would then be the peace agreement, like you just said.
Mm-hmm.
As
Take
opposed
it off
to
the dumb stuff and put it on the important stuff.
That's what I would have done. But
What
I'm
do you
not
think-
advising him, huh?
well, what do you think is what is the black reaction? Every black person I've spoken to, particularly black men to a person, they have said karma is tough because everybody of a certain age, and even those who didn't remember the crime bills, but they were impacted by the crime bills. They all go to Biden. They fault him for this, and they say, "Well, what did you expect? Can you imagine?" I mean, Dwight, what are you hearing?
What am I hearing and what am I seeing?
Yeah, both. What are you hearing today, and what have you seen?
I haven't talked to anybody today about this, so I
Okay.
just can tell you what I'm seeing.
Okay.
Is that in what I'm perceiving is that Negro's attitude is payback as a dog. It is not that sympathy that you hear from the media because they've had the same struggles, but they've paid the price for the struggles.
Mhm.
And it gives you a different perspective. It's one thing to see a rich child who have gotten strung out on drugs, Kennedy, who saw, his family assassinated and killed, and struggle with that. He and his sisters, some of his
The whole
cousins,
family.
whole family struggle because they see over and over again their uncle gets shot on television in a limousine, and the auntie grabbed the back of his head. And so you understand that kind of trauma. But when you see a kid who has only had privilege in his life, a kid who had every opportunity to be somebody, a kid who has been insulated and isolated and unrepentant.
Well, wait a minute. Even with the death, because he and his brother did witness their mother and sister get killed. They were all in the car.
How was he then?
Was
A little kid.
that was 50 years ago? What that was? He was maybe about 4 or 5, right?
He doesn't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember things at 4 and 5. I do.
Well,
He's not like you. He's not Jesse Jackson's child. he's a child of a man who was fourth from the bottom of his class. Different person.
You and Professor Zunas, he said that in the prior interview. He said, "Really? Oh wow."
He's not a brainiac.
Well,
he's arrogant.
Jacqueline Jackson, thank you very much. You know that.
And he's arrogant. In his privilege. And black folk recognize that. They got a sixth sense for that. But I think that if you want to understand how they think, and I think Linda has a real sense of where we are in that. I think Linda's right on point.
Well, I'm okay because most of the jury is black. Do you think that they thought that the jury was going to be sympathetic?
3 hours.
Yeah.
3 hours, Santita. 3.
But I'm sure they did not think that was going to happen.
But look at our history as a jury. Just to interject, what's that guy's name that was in the basement of the White House with Reagan? North, was it North,
Ollie
who was
North.
convicted? Yeah, who was shredding everything and everything. And they said, oh, he charged him with a zillion different felonies because he was shredding all these important documents. And he elected to have a trial in Washington D.C. with an all-black jury, and we walked him out of that in 2 hours because we knew that he wasn't down there shredding on his own, that he had been ordered to do so by Reagan, that the real person wasn't there. Black jurors we just know, as my mama would say, we know how to separate the wheat from the chaff. We know the truth and we know BS when we hear it. And had it been a black jury for Trump, he would have
That's
won.
right. He would have
In
walked.
New York State, no question in my mind.
Mhm.
Because
Why?
we don't deal in that nonsense that
Why do you
Atlanta
think a
did.
black jury
I
would have?
agree with you, Linda, on that.
Yep.
Why?
He'd have walked the same day.
Well, because you've impaneled juries. Why do you think a black jury in New York City would have been inclined to let Trump go?
Because we have fundamental integrity. We have honor as a people. And we know BS when we hear it. You, as my mama would say, you have to peddle those papers on the other side of the street. You can't peddle those papers over here. You couldn't peddle them on Ollie North. You couldn't peddle them today on Hunter Biden, and you certainly wouldn't have been able to peddle them on Trump, who was fighting and knew. Everybody knew that the judge was his wife, his daughter was making millions off of this deal. Everybody knew where he was coming from, and they watched his rulings and his anger when people in the courtroom showed contempt for what was being said. He said that guy was rolling his eyes and all that. I mean, who is he? You know, he acting like he can control somebody's eyeballs. Give me a break. Uh-uh. We're not buying that. Black folks don't buy that. We're smart, really, really, really smart and intuitive about people and situations. And you don't believe it, ask your daddy.
Okay. Dwight, your thoughts. I see you
Or
agree with.
Cornell. Or Cornell.
Yeah, absolutely. I see you agree with. Why you? She resonates quite deeply with you, Dwight.
Because she is one of the few people I've heard on the show that can just objective about what she's looking at. She sees
Explain.
it. Hmm?
Explain.
A lot of black people buy the party line,
Hmm.
even though their instincts may tell them one thing, either based on intimidation or propaganda. They echo the party line. Well, Trump needs to be accountable. And yeah, when you do something wrong, nobody's above the law. Well, all that is true, but that does not allow them to see how trumped up and manufactured these charges are on Trump. And if you say that, because black people are so emotional about it, then you become a Trumpite or a sellout or whatever they want to call you. Because they can't objectively, it's very hard for them to objectively see what they're looking at. One of the reasons I've been so successful on this show, and it's pretty much called everything for the last 4 or 5 years that has happened, is because I'm objective. I can see the reality in front of me and take away the propaganda that the media tries to blind you with. What I'm hearing from Linda is, I ain't pro Trump or anti Trump, but I do know a sham when I'm looking at one. I'm not pro Biden or anti Biden, but I do know reality when I'm looking at it. And it's impressive to me that she can be that objective, in my opinion, can be that objective.
Well, would you owe that to your legal background? And well, I mean, just what do you see that a lot of people don't see, Attorney Bernard?
Well, what happened in this case? Everybody, I mean, quite frankly, as I said earlier, Stevie Wonder could see that you couldn't have a book where you're talking about being a junkie and talking about your drug use and the money that you've spent and everything, and you go buy a gun. I mean, he bought that gun for his protection. I'm sure of that. And it was found in the car by his wife. Remember, she went out. She was looking for other stuff because she didn't want the kids to get stopped with drug paraphernalia, and they come up with a revolver. No. I mean, unfortunately, he was truly addicted to drugs. I mean, he was thinking like a junkie, like many people that live in our community. And as you pointed out, Dwight, those jurors recognized it for what it was.
Well,
Mhm.
A
let me
junkie
ask you
buys a
this.
gun, especially a junkie that's handling thousands of dollars. There's no telling how much money he spent on drugs,
Well,
how
hold
many
on.
thousands and hundreds of thousands he carried.
Well, as a lawyer, what impact do you believe his daughter's appearance, her testimony had? First,
None.
mm,
He was his own worst enemy. I mean, my mom would say you get it from the horse's mouth. You listen directly to him. That's what the problem
but
was.
why did they try? Why did they make this case about his addiction? Because if you look at corporate media, that's all they're talking about today, his addiction.
Because that's what they want you to focus on. They don't want you to focus on the fact that he's a junkie and that he thinks like a junkie and he acted like a junkie. The black people that they have condemned for drug abuse all along. I mean, you do anything to hit that pipe. You got to hit the pipe. You got to. You got to get the drugs. You got to get it. And they don't want you to focus on the fact that he's old and a junkie and
Mm.
has had numerous opportunities way back 20 some years ago to get off of it when he went to the military. He's been a junkie probably since he was in high school.
But let me ask you this: do you think that this is an opportunity for us? I mean, and I wonder, would it be wise, prudent for them, for President Biden in particular, to thank people for the sympathy that they've extended to his son, and to say, you know what, perhaps we're approaching this whole drug thing wrong. You know, a lot of traumatized people. There are a lot of folks who lost their parents. A lot of people have lost their friends. I mean, folks have been shot in their faces. That's traumatizing. A lot of folks have been traumatized, and they get high to compensate. I mean, a lot of folks do a whole lot of things. The same kind of sympathy and empathy that is being given to him. Do you think that the president could say, hey, give it to everybody else?
He's a white man. It's never the same when it's a white man involved than a black man. He's a white man. So we got real sympathy for him. No question about it. He's a victim of his drug addiction. Like everybody isn't, you know. But the only difference is that he has the money to pay for it. He didn't victimize anybody else, but he would have if he didn't have the money.
And that's what I was thinking. And I say the difference in the point of view is I know the media tries to say, well, and in the gun lobby tries to say, well, every American has a right to protect himself under the Second Amendment, even those who are on drugs. That will be their argument. But the black point of view is, I wonder if he got that gun because he was robbing other drug dealers. I mean, it's a different perspective based on what your reality is. And our reality is a different reality because we know how the law crouches on us
Correct.
and what we have to deal with. And so that's the prism we look out of.
So do you?
Absolutely.
So again, uh, just going forward, do you think that he blew a big opportunity today, Dwight, the president? I mean, how do you think Trump will use this, or will he leave this alone?
Well, I think that he's going to show, strangely enough, some sympathy for you because he's had, drug addicted people in his family.
Yeah, his brother, yeah,
Yeah, I don't
that
think
I
he's
was
going to
saying.
beat him over the head with it, like he could do, like they've been beating him over the head with his other case. I just think it's going to help neutralize the whole mantra.
34 convictions.
Yeah, whole mantra
Felony.
of Trump is a convicted felon. I think it's going to be hard for them to play that card. But I think, like I said a little while ago, is I don't think that should have been his lead anyway. I think that he should have just overwhelmed the moment and came out with something profound and mammoth that became, the story. and it's become a subset of that because there can be no win for him in this story
No, no win at all.
that I
Even though
see.
they're saying that he's, you were seeing his humanity as a father. He's hurting. He's in pain. He's gone his way to Delaware to be with his son. You don't think that's a winning storyline?
Linda wants to say something.
Yeah, what Dwight is saying is what your father would do. I've watched your father when they ask him a difficult question about a difficult subject, and I'm sure Dwight has as well. Jesse goes and talks about something he wants to talk about. He's not going to let you limit him to the track that you're on. He's going to go somewhere else, just like you said earlier, and make it about something else. He's not gonna fall into that hole. He's not gonna fall into that trap. Your father answers the question and responds to something the way he wants to respond to it, with something that he views as important. He doesn't let you decide what's important for him. He never has. And I've always admired that about him. I've told him when I'm talking to people, I say, you ought to be like Jesse Jackson. Jesse answers what he wants to talk about. He's not gonna let you pigeonhole him. And that's what he would have done if he had done what Dwight suggested. He wouldn't have anything to say other than I love my son.
And that's it. Dwight,
That's it.
that resonates with you, Dwight.
Because she's right.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
because now the narrative is they pivot to, and it's true that this has got to be a really painful day for the whole family.
Well,
I get it.
prepare to have more pain, Santita. Because I keep going back to this ain't the only trial in
Correct.
town. There's some other painful situations that's going to come into play. And you just can't keep saying over and over again, I love my child. And
Is any of this political retribution? Do you think?
I don't understand the
No,
question.
I
I
mean,
don't
do you
think
think this
so.
is political payback? Any of it?
No, I think
No,
God is doing this.
yeah, but I think that they set the precedent for it, which is why I was telling you all last year that if they went down that road with Trump, they were going to open the door for everybody else. That wasn't the right road to go. As I used to say, Linda, I told them last year.
No, you said it in 2020, 2021, 2022,
Smart man.
2023.
Smart man.
Because
I
Schumer said that once he came in, that the intelligence community was going to come after him. Remember that?
and I told them, don't turn a monster into a martyr.
Yeah,
Right.
you did.
Don't turn a monster into a martyr. Is that you
No,
want to make Trump the sympathetic figure in this? If you come at him that way, but you will also give the Republicans a pretext to follow the leader, and so whatever you do to Trump, they're gonna do to you all in spades.
that's right.
And so they ain't through with Biden yet, much less the son. That ain't over either.
Don't dig a ditch for somebody else. You might fall in it yourself.
That's right. That's right. And if they were going to do this trial, that they should do it after the election, so that if he lost, at least it looked as if he lost to the popular vote. That it didn't look like they were trying to keep him from being able to run because they were afraid of him. And so it would look at least like like an honest situation. But don't use everything you could use to block him from running because you're behind in the polls. And that's how this thing is playing out.
So, is there a path forward? I mean, what do you expect for Linda? I mean, just given your legal expertise, as you look at these trials that are ahead for him and the trials that are ahead for former President Trump, what do you see?
Well, there's nothing coming for President Trump before the election,
Mhm.
but the tax trial is a doomsday. It's doomsday because there's no way he can come up. He already went through his book. He's been a junkie forever, and all this stuff. No, no. And what is it? $47 million, I think, in taxes or whatever it is. Oh, this is gonna be the death kill because he didn't spend all that money. He gave it to his uncle James and to the big fella. That's gonna be the narrative, and that is that. That's it. He's gonna fall into that grave.
What? So, do you think? Well, with former President Trump, what about the sentencing on July 11th?
Oh, that's gonna be okay. He's gonna be okay. He's not going to jail. he's going to have a tether, not a tether, but
And
everybody knows where he is all the time. He can't leave the country. He can't do all that kind of stuff. They'll have him reporting like they do everybody, which is a waste of time and energy, but they'll do it anyway. They're not going to do anything else because they really don't want the consequences of a guilty verdict when he was not guilty, and then in wrongful imprisonment too. No, that'll just push Trump over the edge.
The ones that I'll be praying for, Linda, so you will know, is Bragg and Sister down in Atlanta, and all these colored people that they had do their bidding and sacrifice their careers and their integrity to take these bogus cases on. Because when Trump becomes the president, he's going to punish them. So for them, it was all risk and no reward.
How can he punish them, Linda?
Oh, he'll figure it out.
Linda?
Federal laws. There's 1,000 different federal laws and federal issues. They have been discredited already. And why Fannie was able to keep her job, I don't understand. When she committed perjury under oath. When you swear to something under oath, it was unbelievable.
And that ain't over.
No, it ain't over. It ain't over. They're gonna lose their licenses and all that, and everybody that was involved in this thing is gonna go down. But Trump doesn't even have to do that because the U.S. attorney for Georgia will be able to do it. It doesn't have to come up from the Justice Department.
Look at what they did to the sister. Look what they did to the sister in Baltimore.
Yeah,
she's gonna be the point of reference for this.
Marilyn,
she's gonna be the poster child. Yes, she's gonna be the poster child for this.
Well, there we have it, everybody. Attorney Linda Bernard, Detroit Police Commissioner, and brilliant attorney, helping us to. It's a perspective that is out here, and I want us to be really think. Dwight McKee, senior advisor to Cornel West. I want us to think, and really begin to ask some questions because there's a lot going on here. And you know what? While we have this opportunity, I hope we'll use this opportunity to grow. The sympathy and empathy that is being given to Hunter Biden and his family, they deserve it because people struggle. And I believe that people need to be embraced and loved. But everyone in prison needs that too. Everyone who is serving these onerous sentences, quite frankly, that Hunter Biden's father put in place. They need to be released from prison, and they need to be welcomed back into the fellowship of humanity with sympathy. Explain their stories. Talk about how they've been traumatized, how they've watched friends killed. Before my brother Jonathan graduated from high school, he, I think, buried four of his friends, I think, in 1 year. That's traumatizing. And that is the reality for so many of our children who use drugs as an escape and who use homicide as a form of suicide. Think about that, everybody. Everybody's got a story. And everybody deserves love and sympathy and empathy. Everyone deserves to be understood. I'm Santita Jackson, attorney Linda Bernard, Dwight McKee, sending you so much love. AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It's a joy to be with you today.